It started so suddenly I almost laughed. Eric, the same man who once said, walking from the couch to the fridge counts as cardio, was suddenly hitting the gym every single evening after work. Or so he claimed. He came home tossing around phrases like personal best and intense session, words I'd never heard him use in all our years together. At first, I played the supportive wife, nodding along and telling him how proud I was. Maybe, I thought, this was his way of taking better care of himself, of us. But then I noticed the little things, the way he'd walk in looking fresh, like he'd just stepped out of a shower, not a drop of sweat on him, his hair perfectly in place, not a single strand sticking to his forehead. And some nights, instead of that faint tang of deodorant, there was the unmistakable scent of cologne. Not the heading to the gym kind, the heading out on a date kind. That's when my gut started whispering, soft but relentless. Something's off. The kind of whisper you can't unhear once it starts. I didn't say anything right away. I've learned over the years that silence can be a more powerful tool than accusation. I just watched, noticed, stored every detail like beads on a string, waiting for the moment they'd form the whole picture. And I had a feeling that picture wasn't going to be pretty. The change in him wasn't just physical. It was in the way he carried himself. There was a certain lightness in his step, almost a smugness in his smile. He'd scroll through his phone more, tilting the screen away just slightly when I walked by. Once, I caught a glimpse of a text. Nothing incriminating, just a smiley face. But it wasn't from me, and that was enough to keep my mind spinning. I told myself I was imagining things, but deep down, I knew I wasn't. Even the timing was suspicious. Before, Eric would drag his feet leaving the office, claiming he had too much work. Now, he was out the door at 5 sharp, gym bag in hand, like a teenager heading to his first date. And when he got home, he'd talk about the guys at the gym or this new machine, but never names, never specifics. The details were always fuzzy, the kind you invent on the fly when you're hoping no one will ask too many questions. And maybe that's what stung the most, not the suspicion itself, but the fact that he thought I wouldn't notice. That after all our years together, after everything we'd been through, he assumed I was too naive to connect the dots. I'd always prided myself on knowing him better than anyone. Now it felt like I was living with a stranger, one who smelled suspiciously like sandalwood cologne. One night, I lingered in the kitchen, pretending to tidy up just so I could hear him come in. The front door clicked open, and there he was, hair perfectly styled, shirt crisp, not a single trace of the effort a real workout would leave behind. He smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and headed straight for the shower. I watched him go, my mind churning with quiet questions I wasn't ready to voice. Not yet. As the water ran upstairs, I leaned against the counter and thought about how quickly routines can shift. A month ago, his evenings meant lounging on the couch, watching old reruns with a beer in hand. Now he was supposedly spending hours lifting weights and running laps, yet somehow looking like he'd stepped off a magazine cover every time he walked through the door. It didn't add up, and the math was starting to drive me crazy. Still, I didn't confront him. That wasn't my style, not until I had something solid. Instead, I let him keep spinning his little stories about killer workouts and intense sessions, nodding along like I believed every word. But in the quiet corners of my mind, I was already planning my first move. The kind of move that would tell me exactly what he was doing when he wasn't at the gym. The idea came to me over morning coffee, as casually as tossing sugar into the cup. If Eric was going to play games, I'd just have to set the board myself. That day, while he was in the shower, I opened his gym bag. The smell hit me first, not the sour tang of used clothes, but fabric softener. Neatly folded inside were his t-shirt, socks, and those black workout shorts he swore were his favorite. Without a second thought, I slipped the shorts out and tucked them deep into the laundry pile. I zipped the bag closed and left everything else untouched. If he was really going to the gym, he'd notice the missing shorts immediately. If not, well, his reaction would tell me more than any confrontation could. It felt almost surgical, the precision of the test. No yelling, no accusations, just silence and observation, the kind of approach that makes people reveal themselves without even realizing it. All day I carried that small, secret satisfaction with me. At work, I smiled through meetings, my mind half on spreadsheets, half on the quiet little trap I'd set at home. By the time the evening rolled around, my stomach buzzed with anticipation. This was it. The moment I'd see whether his stories matched reality or whether I'd just proven my instincts right. That night, the front door opened right on schedule. Eric strolled in, looking every bit the man who'd just had a great workout. Hair perfectly styled, skin smooth, shirt clinging to him like he'd stepped out of a catalog. He dropped his gym bag by the stairs and grinned at me. "Workout was amazing tonight," he said, his tone light, confident. Too confident. Not a flicker of hesitation, not even a glance toward the shorts that weren't in his bag. I felt my lips curve into what I hoped passed for a warm smile. Inside, though, my pulse quickened. There it was, the confirmation I needed. If he had truly been to the gym, he'd have remembered those shorts. He'd have mentioned them, maybe even asked where they'd gone. But no, not a word. The silence said more than anything else could. As he chatted about new routines and pushing his limits, I just nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Every detail, every gesture, I filed away in that mental folder I'd been building for weeks. It was no longer a suspicion. Now it was a fact. And facts, in my experience, were far more dangerous to a liar than any gut feeling. After dinner, he tossed his so-called gym clothes into the hamper, humming to himself as if he hadn't just handed me the evidence I was looking for. I watched him from across the room, my mind already moving to the next step. Phase 1 had been about observation. Phase 2 would be about pressure. Not a full confrontation, not yet, but a little nudge to see how he'd react when the walls began to close in. There was a strange calm in me, the kind that comes when you've stopped wondering and started planning. I'd played the role of the oblivious wife long enough. Now every smile, every casual conversation, every touch would be part of the setup. He wouldn't even know he was being cornered until there was no way out. And as I rinsed the plates in the sink, I could almost feel it, the shift in the air, the quiet before a storm. Soon I'd give him an offer he couldn't possibly refuse without revealing everything he was trying so hard to hide. 2 nights later, I decided it was time to plant the seed. Over dinner, while Eric scrolled through his phone between bites, I said it as casually as if I were suggesting a new recipe. "I've been thinking, maybe I should start going to the gym with you. It'll be fun. We could motivate each other." I didn't even look up right away, just let the words float in the air like they meant nothing at all. When I finally glanced at him, it was there, the tiniest freeze, a flicker of something sharp in his eyes before he smoothed it over with a laugh. "You? At the gym with me? You'd probably get bored." His tone was light, but the way his fingers tightened around his fork told a different story. I just smiled, tucking that little reaction away for later. The rest of the meal, he was quieter than usual, tossing in small talk, but avoiding the topic completely. Which of course only confirmed what I already suspected. The last thing Eric wanted was for me to see what going to the gym really looked like for him. And now that I'd touched the nerve, I had no intention of letting it go. Over the next few days, it became almost a game for me. I'd bring it up at unexpected moments, folding laundry, brushing my teeth, sipping coffee. "So, when should I come with you? I could start light, maybe just the treadmill." Each time, his smile thinned just a little more. "I really prefer training alone," he'd say, or, "It's how I clear my head after work." Always with that hint of forced patience, like he was trying not to snap. I could see the excuses forming before he even spoke them. He tried to make it sound noble, that he didn't want to distract me, that he valued my time. But underneath, his voice carried the faint edge of someone cornered, and I was the one nudging him closer to the wall. The beauty of it was that I didn't have to accuse or demand. All I had to do was keep smiling, keep insisting in that light-hearted, "Oh, I'm just trying to be close" way. Every refusal, every evasive look, every tight laugh was another thread in the net I was quietly weaving around him. By the end of the week, his nerves were practically humming. I could hear it in the clipped way he answered me, see it in the way he avoided eye contact when I asked, "So, Should I bring my own water bottle, or will we share? He chuckled, but it was hollow, like the sound you make when you're trying to mask irritation. That tiny crack in his composure was all I needed to know I was pressing exactly where it hurt. At night, I'd lie beside him, listening to his breathing, wondering if he was planning his next excuse in the dark. He still hadn't figured out that I wasn't trying to find the truth anymore. I already had it. Now I was just letting him sweat in a way the gym never could. And as I smiled to myself in the quiet, I knew the time for subtle hints was ending. The proof I'd been holding on to wasn't just going to stay tucked away forever. I was getting ready to put it right in front of him and watch his whole story collapse in real time. What Eric didn't know was that I'd already done my homework. 2 weeks earlier, while he thought I was home cooking dinner, I'd been parked half a block away from a tidy brick apartment building. I'd watched him pull up, gym bag slung over his shoulder like some kind of prop, and stroll right inside. No key fumble, no pause. Straight to the door where a woman answered with a kiss that made my stomach clench. I'd gone back more than once just to be sure. Each time it was the same. No gym in sight, no workout in progress, just him disappearing into her apartment for hours. My phone held every second of it. His arrival, her smile, the way they lingered in the doorway before stepping inside. Proof, in crystal clear resolution. So when he sat across from me that evening, repeating his now tired line, "I train better alone," I didn't even bother to argue. I just reached for my phone, unlocked it, and hit play. His own face filled the screen, walking into her arms, her lips on his. The sound of my voice cut through the silence like glass. "Is this your new personal trainer?" For a moment, he didn't breathe. His eyes darted from the screen to my face and back again, like maybe if he looked fast enough, he could rewrite what he'd just seen. His mouth opened, a stammer beginning to form. But nothing came out. The kind of silence that follows a gunshot hung between us, heavy and sharp. I watched him, my expression steady, almost curious, like I was waiting for him to explain a magic trick gone wrong. But there was nothing he could say. Every frame of that video was a nail in the coffin of the story he'd been feeding me for weeks. He knew it. I knew it. And the beauty was, I didn't need to raise my voice. He finally pushed his chair back, running a hand over his face, still searching for words. But the time for excuses had passed. In that moment, the man who'd come home smelling of cologne and telling me about killer workouts looked small, cornered and exposed, exactly where I wanted him. I slid the phone across the table toward him, letting the video loop one more time. The muffled sound of her laugh bled from the tiny speaker, each repetition hammering the point home. "You've been very dedicated," I said softly, my tone almost conversational. "Just not to the gym." His shoulders sank, the fight draining from him as if he'd finally realized there was no version of this where he came out looking clean. He muttered something, maybe her name, maybe an excuse, but I didn't bother to catch it. My focus was on the shift happening right in front of me, the moment a liar understands the game is over. I could almost feel the air change between us, the power sliding from his side of the table to mine. I stood, picking up my phone, and left the video paused on the most damning frame, her lips on his. "Dinner's over," I said simply, my voice calm. But in my mind, I was already working on the real plan, the one that would turn his little secret into my biggest advantage yet. By the next morning, my course was set. I didn't need revenge that screamed. I wanted the kind that whispered, the kind that left marks in bank accounts and property deeds. I called a lawyer before Eric even finished his coffee, my voice steady as I explained the situation and offered to email over the videos. The silence on the other end told me they knew this would be quick work. Within days, the paperwork was moving. I'd spent years building this home with him, managing the bills, the renovations, the little touches that turned it from a house into our place. Now it was going to be my place, legally. The car, too. And, thanks to the footage, a generous settlement that would keep me comfortable while I figured out my next chapter. Eric tried to play the part of the remorseful husband. Long texts, calls I didn't answer, even a bouquet of my favorite lilies left on the porch. But flowers can't hide the smell of betrayal. And every time my phone buzzed, I just felt more certain. Cutting him out wasn't just the right decision. It was the healthiest one I'd made in years. The day the divorce papers were signed, I felt lighter than I had in months. No tears, no dramatic goodbyes, just a clean break sealed with my signature. Eric sat across from me in the lawyer's office, his jaw tight, eyes fixed on the table. He didn't speak, and I didn't offer him anything to fill the silence. The imbalance between us was crystal clear now, and I had no interest in softening it. When it was over, I walked out into the sunlight, the city humming around me. My phone buzzed in my bag, another missed call from him. I blocked the number without hesitation, like tossing a stone into a river and watching it disappear. That was it. No more access, no more explanations. He'd forfeited the right to speak into my life the moment he chose her over honesty. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, kicked off my shoes, and stood in the middle of my living room. The one he'd never set foot in again. The air felt different, cleaner. I could almost hear the faint echo of my own heartbeat, steady and certain, carrying me toward whatever came next. A month later, I finally walked into a gym. For real this time. No games, no secrets, no pretending. The scent of rubber mats and faint music from the speakers felt like a fresh start. My new trainer, a woman with a no-nonsense smile, asked what my goals were. I thought for a moment, then smirked. Strength, I said, the kind that gets you out of bad situations. She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. As I moved through my first workout, I realized it wasn't about Eric anymore. It wasn't even about the betrayal. It was about reclaiming space in my own life. The physical, the emotional, all of it. Every rep felt like shedding another piece of the weight I'd been carrying for far too long. And as I wiped sweat from my forehead, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Not just stronger, but freer. The kind of freedom that comes when you stop waiting for someone to respect you and decide to respect yourself first. The kind you never hand back once you've earned it.